The Ottawa Senators make a huge extension for their future, and the Philadelphia Flyers extend one of their top centermen. We'll break this all down for you in this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we get into that, we just wanted to say that 93% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you're looking for a home to daily NHL content, look no further and go down and hit that subscribe button. But with that out of the way, let's get right into the first topic of this video, which is Sens extend Sanderson. And yes, you would have seen yesterday that Jake Sanderson has signed an 8-year, $8.05 million AAV extension with the Ottawa Senators. And as we take a look here, in his rookie year last year, he put up 32 points, but was very promising on the defensive end with 147 block shots and 43 hits. But we're going to take a look at what General Manager Pierre Dorion said about Jake. He said Jake's transition to the pro game has been flawless. He's a very mature young man who demonstrates a routine and skillful ability to play important minutes with poise. And he also goes on to say here, an effortless skater who holds himself to a high standard. He has the talent to be one of the best all-around defensemen in the NHL for years to come. We are very pleased to have another significant member of our core group of players under a long-term contract. And Mark, yes, this one kind of took me by surprise yesterday. I wasn't really expecting him to get this much, but he did have a very promising season. And at only 21 years of age, to lock him up till he's 29 is just a big deal.
Oh, no, for sure. You kind of look at Ottawa and they're kind of getting into this groove of we want to push out of this rebuild. We want to have this core around for a while and just kind of make that full push. And honestly, if you're signing a guy at the age of 21 for 8 years, if he can continue development, this might be a steal of a contract. At 21, he had 4 goals and 28 assists last year. And you kind of get into the situation where you have him and Shabbat as your top guys. And if this development continues, I think he can be a huge piece for this team. You've seen last year showed flashes. Sometimes on the ice, he looked like the best player. So especially having him for this full term instead of having a 2 or 3 year term and maybe having to give him more than this $8 million at the end of it, I think this is an absolute steal for Ottawa.
Yeah, I definitely had to agree with you there, and we've seen this with Ottawa in the past, where they did extend Shabbat when he was younger too, and I know a lot of people, disagreed with that, but you got to take into account that this is an 8-year deal, and this guy's only 21 years of age, so you're going to get this guy right into the prime years, especially when the salary cap's going up, and probably in 4 years' time, 8 million won't look as bad as it do now. But that, with that saying, I think Jake Sanderson is going to be a great D man for Ottawa. And just having two top defensemen in Sanderson Shabbat extended long term only shows wonders for the Ottawa for the future.
Yeah, you kind of seen them actually start to spend money before. You've seen the past couple of years, the Sens were almost penny pinchers in the situation where they didn't want to give a lot of money to players and just kind of keep things low. But I do really like this. I mean, you do have a bit of worry that he might not develop any more than he is. But I mean, he showed so much promise last year. You have him through his full prime, like you said. And I think this was a no brainer. You just lock him up with the cap about to skyrocket. This deal is just going to start looking smaller and smaller. And I think this is perfect for both sides.
Yeah, and like I seen yesterday on hockey Twitter, I know sometimes it's not a great place to be, but like a lot of people were seeing like his point total, and I'm like, man, why is this guy getting 8 million? But if you watched Ottawa Senators or took a deeper look into him like we did, he's just a great defensive player as well, and he's developing that offensive side to his game. And only in the first year in the NHL, he played really well. And I think, at only 21 years of age, this guy's going to keep getting better and better. And having these two young defensemen back there that you don't have to worry about night in, night out is just going to do wonders for his team, like I said. And like we said here on the channel before, I think Ottawa is a really dark horse team this year in the Atlantic. And I think, signing this guy, he's going to want to play with an edge this year.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's a situation where you just got to lock him up. You got to hope that this development continues. And like you said, the points, it was 32 points. It might not look that flashy, but you have guys like John Klingberg on the Leafs, for example, that's going to be out there for points only. So if you get a guy that, could put up 50, 60 points and still be your best two-way guy, you have to lock up these players regardless if they don't go up and put up 80 or 90 points as a defenseman.
Yeah, definitely, because we've seen this now. A lot of these players that only play 1 or 2 years are getting signed to bridge deals, and then they're getting signed in UFA in the unrestricted free agency pool when they get out of these bridge deals, and they've proven that they're great players in the league. And you don't want to see that happen because if you're developing these young talents, you want to keep them around. And I think this was such a smart move by Pierre Dorian. And like he said, he's one of the best all-around defenders, and I think in the coming years, I think he will develop into a great defenseman in this league.
Yeah, and you'd rather sign him to this 8x8 now than when, say, he hits 26, 27 and you sign him. I mean, you look at Vlasic on the Sharks. He's in the situation where he got paid a lot in the later end of his career, and it's really starting to haunt the team where they can't move the contract and he isn't performing to it. But with this, you get him to his prime. I mean, the worst case, you pay a little bit more than you want, and he can still be a top four D man for you.
That's the thing, right? Like it's a long term. Like he's 21 now, and he's going to be signed till he's 29. So when that contract's over, I know that's way in the future. He can definitely get a 4 or 5 year deal to end his career off. But I think this is just great for the Ottawa Senators organization. I think it was the right step. And like you said, in the past they have been a bit of a penny pincher type team. But we see him signing these guys like Stutzla now and Shabbat, and I just think this is such a great move for Ottawa, and I think it's just going to secure their future in the Atlantic and the rebuild. They're coming out the end of a rebuild now, and I think they're definitely one of my dark horse teams for this year.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to be pushing for the playoffs. It's going to be between them and Detroit, I think, fighting for that last spot. But I do think they have a strong chance to kind of just make that next jump and make the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to get into our next topic of the video now, which is Philly signs Frost to a bridge deal. And yes, today it was announced, yesterday it was rumored that Morgan Frost is signed 2 years extension for 2.1 million AAV with the Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, Frost has been a great centerman, great young centerman for the Philadelphia Flyers over the last year. Another team who's kind of going into a rebuild now, so it's nice to have one of your younger guys locked up for another couple of years, and then once that contract ends, extend him again. Well, as we take a look at his stats here, he had 46 points in 81 games last year. Great face-off taker as well, and he's playing 16 minutes a night, and he's just another player who goes out there and he lays the body. I think this is a great signing for Philly, who obviously I think they're going to have a bit of a down year again this year, but that's the way it is when you're in a rebuild. But it's nice to have these young guys sign back, even if it's only for a 2 year deal.
Yeah, the big thing with Frost too, he can kind of come into Philly this year as the number one C. I mean, they traded Kevin Hayes last year. With Couturier, we don't really know what's happening with him. I mean, there has been a bit of injuries. He had a surgery last year. But this is a guy only at the age of 24. He scored 20 goals, and he can come in and be maybe your top center, second center if you have someone else come in and step up a little more. But it's almost a situation where, I mean, it's such a low cap hit of 2.1, I think you said, that you can almost move this year and next year for a king's ransom to a contending team. Like, just say you have a team that they have an injury on the third line or a second line and they need a center. This guy could come in, he could fill it in, a 20 goal score at the age of 24. I think this would be a huge deal. You've seen what Brandon Hagel brought in from Chicago when Tampa traded for him. I think it could be a bigger deal than that. And just the situation, you get a young guy, he's proven, he's a center. And with Philly, I mean, it's a win-win. You either keep him at this and you can extend him, or it's a situation where, like I said, you can get a king's ransom for him at trade deadline.
Yeah, this contract kind of reminds me of the Sean Dursey one we've seen earlier this offseason. A 2 million deal, and a guy that can get traded at the deadline. But like you said here, he has a chance to come in and play that top center role, and that's only going to boost his worth in the league, because if he's coming in and they're trusting him taking on some of the top centers in the NHL, it's only going to make this guy better at only 24 years of age. It's going to make his development even better. And like you said, he's definitely a piece that you can trade, especially for this rebuilding team at the deadline for a couple picks for this upcoming draft.
Yeah, you could see a guy like Hart or Frost or Konechny even just be moved at deadline just for this ransom, just to get the picks, the prospects, a couple players you can plug in. But it's a situation where it's a win-win. You have this guy, it's no pressure on him in Philadelphia. He can go out there, he can be the top center if they let him. He can kind of just show what he's worth. If he looks like a guy for the future, you keep him. And like I said, if you kind of just middles out at a 20 goal score, which is still very good for a guy at 24. It's a situation where you can get a couple picks from a couple prospects, and it's kind of like push along this rebuild that Philly's going to be in for the next couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. And we're here for you, Philly fans. I know you're in for it. I'm a Montreal fan, so I've been in for it too. So I feel your pain, but we're here for you. Look for it towards the future, and stay tuned to like the draft pools for this year because it's always nice to be caught up to date on that and what position your team's going to be in towards the end of the season. But we're going to get into our next topic, which is everybody's favorite comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to Oilers 1972. He said yesterday on our Gretzky video, as an Oilers fan, it hurts my heart to hear Gretzky saying that about the Leafs for this year. This is the year for the Oilers. Leafs-Oilers final. Bring it on. And Mark, wouldn't that be awesome, just seeing the Oilers and the Leafs in the finals? I don't care who wins it, as long as a Canadian team wins it. I'd like to see it come back to Canada.
Obviously, I want to see the Leafs win the cup, but I mean, if it comes down to two Canadian teams, at the end of the day, the cup does come back here. I mean, it seems like most players on most teams are Canadian, but it's a situation where we haven't seen a Canadian team win so long that I think ultimately all of Canada can agree we do want a cup back here eventually.
Yeah, sorry if you're watching this from the United States. We're sorry. We're rooting for Canada to bring the cup home. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to go down below, leave a like, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before the season starts, and we'd love to see that happen. And comment down below what are your thoughts on this Sanderson extension and this Frost extension, and let us know down below, if you could see either of Frost getting traded at the deadline, because I think that would be a really interesting thing that we could definitely see out of Philly. But I've been KC alongside my co-host Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.